All right, today we're jumping into something truly unique. We're going to take a guided tour through a document called the Antidote Manuscript. And let me tell you, it's a wild ride. It tries to weave together things like sustainable farming, crypto finance, and this really deep, almost mythological lore. It's a lot. So let's try and decode this thing together.
So, right off the bat, you can feel the vibe they're going for. This isn't just a business plan. They call it a transformative journey. This one quote pretty much sets the stage for the massive ambition we're about to get into. They are not thinking small here.
Okay, so what's this journey all about, really? Well, at its core, it's this crazy collision of two worlds that you just don't see together. On one hand, you've got real-world farming, dirt, water, actual living things. And on the other, you have the super abstract digital world of blockchain finance. So the big question, right, is can this actually work? Can you really tie a digital token to a plant growing in a pod? That's what we're here to figure out. Let's zoom out for a sec and look at the big picture, what they call their vision for transformation. The mission is to smash together two really powerful ideas. First, building wealth that can last for generations, and second, actually healing the planet. Sounds great, right? But the how? Well, that's where things start to get really, really interesting. Now, before we get into the tech and the money, we have to talk about the project's foundation. And I gotta say, it's unusual. The whole thing is apparently rooted in this long history of what they call sacred societies. It feels like they're building this whole world, this whole story, to create a super committed community. And they present this backstory as the absolute key to understanding everything else. And this timeline, wow, it lays it all out. It kicks off way back in 536 AD, the year without sun, when a volcanic eruption supposedly blanketed the earth in ash. And that's when these societies got their start. It then weaves through huge historical moments, all the way to a predicted future event in 2050 they're calling the Ashen Covenant. So we're talking about a secret mission that spans centuries. No big deal, right? So you're probably thinking, what on earth does ancient history have to do with a modern farm? Well, here's the bridge, the elemental pillars. And get this, these pillars are guided by what the manuscript calls mascot apostles. Yep, you heard me right. Let's go meet them. So let's meet the crew. We've got Dr. Tink Tink, a mini cow, handling water and aquaponics. Dr. Felder, a golden mushroom, is the fire guy, specializing in mycology. Dr. Randall, a rainbow horseshoe crab, is in charge of earth and biosecurity. And Dr. Corey, a blue-blooded axolotl, is the master of air and regenerative medicine. Each one is basically a mascot for a whole branch of the science here. To make this feel real, let's follow one of them. How about Dr. Felder, the mushroom? All right, so we're following Dr. Felder down what they call the fire path. His whole deal is mycology, the science of mushrooms. And this is where we get into the real nitty-gritty of turning waste into something valuable. It's kind of like how fire transforms things, right? That's the analogy they're going for. The process itself is broken down into three pretty clear steps. First, you prep the compost, using heat to get it ready. Second, you sterilize everything so you have a totally clean slate for growth. And finally, cultivation, where you grow the mushrooms in this perfectly controlled environment. And the whole point of all this? To grow some seriously valuable fungi. And here's the payoff. This whole system isn't just some fancy recycling program. Nope. It's about producing a portfolio of medicinal mushrooms that are in super high demand. We're talking lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, the good stuff. So that fire path leads directly to tangible, valuable products. So, where are they growing all this stuff? On floating farms. And they're using this really cool tech called agrivoltaics. It's a real thing, by the way, not something they made up. It just means you're using the same space, in this case water, for two things at once, generating solar power and farming. It's all about efficiency. And this whole integrated system leads to one of their biggest, boldest claims. Because everything is in a closed-loop system, they say they can cut water use by 90%. Let that sink in for a second. A 90% reduction compared to old-school farming. So for every 100 gallons a normal farm might use, this system would only need 10. That's not just an improvement, that's a potential game changer. Okay, so we've covered the physical world, right? We've got the deep lore, the cute mascots, the high-tech farms. Now, let's switch gears and look at the digital engine that's supposed to make this whole thing go, the blockchain ecosystem. This is where the finance part really kicks into high gear. The system's got a name, of course, the Tink Tink Gold Share Kingdom, or TTGS for short, but the core idea is what's really fascinating. You know NFTs, right? Usually you think of digital art. Well, here, an NFT isn't a picture, it's more like a deed. It represents a tiny piece of actual ownership in one of those real-world floating container farms. It's their attempt to build a solid bridge between digital value and a physical, productive asset. So, a huge question is always, who's in charge? Who owns and controls this ecosystem? And this chart tells you a lot. Look at that. A whopping 70% is set aside for the community. That's huge. The whole structure is designed to be decentralized, to put the power, the governance, and the profits into the hands of the people actually participating. And make no mistake, this is not just a feel-good project. They have some seriously ambitious financial goals. You can see it right here in their 5-year projection. They are dead set on proving that this model can be really good for the planet and really profitable at the same time. And they're not thinking small here, not by a long shot. This is a global vision. Just look at this table. They're already doing their homework on how to integrate with agrivoltaic standards from major international players like Italy, Germany, and France. They're building a roadmap to take this thing worldwide. All right, let's take a breath. We have covered ancient mythology, cartoon mascots, powerful mushrooms, floating solar farms, and a complex blockchain. It's a lot to take in. So what is the ultimate point? Why mash all these wildly different things together? What is the endgame here? Well, the manuscript boils it all down to these 4 core goals. First, planetary regeneration, healing the Earth. Second, community empowerment, giving people control over their own resources. Third, knowledge integration, blending modern science with ancient wisdom. And finally, individual transformation, connecting people back to a larger purpose. Every single piece of this wild puzzle we've looked at is meant to serve this one unified vision. And that leaves us with the big final question, doesn't it? After walking through this incredibly dense and layered vision, you just have to wonder, is this a practical, revolutionary blueprint for a truly sustainable future? Or is it a beautifully complex, modern myth being written right before our very eyes? The manuscript provides the vision. I guess the future's going to have to write the verdict.